All right.
Nice.
So, what is the plan for today? What are we doing?
Yeah, I sent you two slippies. We can go over the first one first, and if like we have time, or if like it doesn't feel like it's that productive, we can look at the second one too.
Mm-hmm. Okay. It's Falco Fox. There we go. Okay. So, what's going on? Like, what are the thoughts? What's the problem?
Yeah. So, um, especially I think on FD in this matchup,
Mm-hmm.
I tend to I think have a little trouble spacing like just at the edge of Fox's full hop range when I laser him. And I think so. That's one of the big issues I have. The other issue is I think when I do laser his landing or I laser him up close, I think the mix ups I play after usually are a little risky or uncalled, like unnecessary. And
After you laser his like as he's landing.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And then I think I'm not great at kind of like reacting to what Fox does after I laser him um, in those spots in general, which is not something I do that often. But if I do try to react, I think often I'm not sure what I should do when I see him, like for example, like take laser and then dash back. Like I don't know what my response is,
Mm-hmm.
uh, unless I guess like I think of the like react after the laser as basically just a way to hit him if he decides to aggress on me while keeping myself safe from his other threats. But that's kind of like I think that's just kind of my thoughts on it right now.
Okay. All right. Let's see what happens. The screen share is working, right? Hello. Hello.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Oh, I said, is the screen share working?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Okay. Were you able to? I was like saying hello for a couple seconds. Was it cutting out or?
No, no, I could hear you.
Oh, okay. Okay. All right. So if a situation comes up that like that was the spot you were thinking of, just let me know what we were talking about. Um. Okay.
Yeah, so I think that was actually like also a good example, like that full hop drill that hit me there, or I think it was like a double jump drill,
Mm-hmm.
or I think it was just full hop.
Yeah, it was a full hub.
Yeah, like
Um.
that.
Yeah. Well, I think that this was like kind of unlucky because you shoot the laser and he shields it, and so you know if somebody shields the laser, they can't dash into a jump. And so that's like sort of like a big thing against Fox in general is like if he shields. And I mean, this happens in pretty much all the matchups, but because Fox is always doing so many like jumping aerial approaches and stuff like that, when he shields, it's nice because it cuts off so many different like movement options that he does, unless he does like a running shield jump out or whatever. But still, so I think you actually reacted pretty correctly to this. It's just like look at like this is more of just like being a little unlucky. Like that barely tips your toe here. I think the dash back here was like a perfectly valid response. Another good option from this range is to laser turnaround up tilt, like right here, because you reacted and you dashed back. It looked like a reaction anyway. So you got the reaction, or you reacted here to his full hop and dashed back, but you can actually just react an up tilt to this if you want. Um, or dashing away here, I think is fine. Like I said, he just like literally barely hits the back of your foot. It's like kind of like a ridiculous situation. I can't believe that hit actually.
Uh, so you don't think that like the way I fired the second laser was problematic either?
No,
Like,
no, because you had plenty of time. Fox is gonna full hop a lot, like just sort of randomly, like when you're, because you have to kind of like continually apply. You don't have to, but applying continual laser pressure is like a very effective way to play the matchup. And like Fox is going to be full hopping a lot to avoid those sort of mix-ups and situations that you're trying to set up, even on FD where like his full hop is not nearly as good because he can't double jump away. So like that like when he full hops on this stage, he's coming down. It's not like the other stages where he'll full hop and then he'll, fast fall, double jump, wave land off, back air, some sort of weird mix up. Like, you're pretty sure that, like, when he full hops, like, he can do this, right? But this doesn't actually do anything, and if you just happen to read his aerial drift, like, if you're like this and then he jumps like this, you can easily come in with, like, like a laser or, like, run under an up tilt or something like that. Like, this isn't a great spot for him to, like, double jump away, So, like, a lot of times when he full hops, he's going to be coming directly down to the ground. He's not going to want to, like, waste his double jump and have the potential, especially because if you shine him out of a double jump on this stage, it's super, super strong. You've probably seen, like, Ginger and stuff do a lot of combos like that, where, like, his opponent will, like, double jump over him, and then he manages to, like, shine them right before they land, and then he just does, like, shine, shine, shine. Like, you can just keep kind of shining people until they go off stage, and then you have an edge guard. Do you know what I'm talking
right?
about? Yeah.
Yeah,
So a lot of times they're not going to really do this double jump here. And even if they do, it's easy to react to. But, like, their options are way more limited on FD, and a lot of times they're going to be coming down immediately after the full hop. So, like, you just have to be really ready to always react if your opponent is full hopping. Like, while you're doing these mix-ups, your main reaction point is checking to see if Fox full hops. Because that sort of dictates... Like, if Fox is going to stay on the ground and he's going to dash around and do short hop stuff, that's already, like, what you're covering and sort of preparing for with, like, your laser and short hop mix-ups. But then, as soon as he full hops, the situation completely changes, and now you're in, rather than, like, a grounded Falco versus Fox neutral, where Falco is pressuring with lasers and Fox is trying to find ways around them, you have the full hop situation where Fox has to mix up his drift and fast fall, and Falco is trying to find a way to both avoid the full hop and probably punish a landing. So, like, the situation, like, drastically changes, like, what game you're playing when Fox full hops. And I think when Fox full hops on this stage, it's actually pretty good for Falco because, like, but it's only really good for Falco if you're super ready to react the second he full hops and, like, prepare to deal with it. And so that's why, like, the laser turnaround up tilt here is really good. Because, like, you have time. Like, you should just be watching him. Like, is he full hopping? Is he full hopping? There's a full hop. And so you avoid that. You react. Okay, keep pressuring. Oh, there's another full hop. Like, if you feel like your up tilt isn't fast enough to get out of this, you can always just shield and roll. Like, you can always roll. You can... Actually, spot dodging drill is actually not that bad. Because he'll usually, like, especially when he's right on top of you, because he'll expect, like, multiple hits of drill to hit you. And so he's delaying his L cancel usually, and you can spot dodge, and then a lot of times he'll miss his L cancel, and you get the shine here. Maybe that's not, like, super, super reliable, but it is, like, a thing. Like, if you feel pressured here, you can sometimes do that mix-up. So, like, the issue isn't actually, like, where you're spacing, because this isn't, like, a committal movement. Like, if you had, if you laser up-tilted and he didn't even full hop, and then... he full hops, and like if he full hops like this and he's coming up here, and as he's reaching the peak you up tilt, obviously that's really bad because you don't have a way to like react to his full hop. But doing this laser is not actually like sus positioning wise at all, because you're correctly like not there's not really like an optimal option here. It's just like mix-ups, but like you shoot this laser and then you're like, okay, I'm going to pretend to do a dash in aerial, and then you think maybe he'll, wave dash back or something, and you get this approaching laser. And, like, the thing is, this spacing is pretty good, too, because even if he, like, up smashes out a shield or something like that, you are, like, if he stayed here and shielded, like, this is a pretty safe laser, and you gain some space. So I think this is actually, like, a really good laser. I don't think there are any problems with it at all. I think the only problem is that you didn't correctly react to him, like, full hopping with... And I mean, you did react to him full hopping. You were just like a little slow, like just like literally 1 frame too slow on this drift. And if he had spaced slightly more inward, this wouldn't have hit, and you would have been fine. So
Yeah,
I don't really think that this was like a problem here. It was just the thing to note is to like be super aware of when he full hops, because it completely changes like the tree branches of neutral that you're gonna go down. Like
yeah,
him full hopping is a big commitment for him, and if you haven't already committed to something big, you just have basically the advantage in that position because he doesn't have a platform to escape to. Because like think about how many times you're in a situation on another stage and you laser Fox, and then like he's in center stage, you laser him, and then you're gonna set up an approaching mix up. He full hops, and you think awesome, and you set up your spacing just so that when he lands, you'll get your punish, and then he just double jumps away. It's the same on this stage, except he doesn't have the double jump away to platform option. So him full hopping, yeah, it's great because it avoids all this grounded stuff, but it just sets up like tree branches that you can totally follow to like beat the full hop.
right. And do you think that like, because I think maybe an issue
Maybe what? What'd you say?
I was gonna say, do you?
I think you're cutting out. You're cutting out a little bit.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah, now I can. Yeah, it was like every time you started talking, it would cut out. Okay, try again.
Yeah, I was gonna say, do you think it like maybe it'll get easier with practice for me to be able to switch between recognizing like full hop and like being cognizant of all the grounded options Fox has? Because that's
think.
kind of like
Yeah, continue. Sorry.
sorry, yeah, I was just gonna say like
Yeah, you cut out again.
sorry, yeah, when I laser his shield like in this situation, like I think a big thing is that my mental stack is a little overwhelmed with like thinking about all the things he could do in this spot. Like he
Mm-hmm.
could laser and then wave dash forward, wave dash back, full jump, or like time a shine out of shield or do an up smash out of shield. And like all of those things are like things I'm trying to think about. And then like when he full hops, it feels like my brain just like is a little slow to react to that. Does
Right.
that seem like that gets easier to do as you practice more?
I mean, obviously, yeah, you like as you improve, it'll become easier, but also, I think it's something that's like worthy of specific focus. Where I'm sure you have like an autopilot for like the grounded game, and I know it's like you're trying to practice, you're trying to improve at the grounded game by like thinking about all these options and like covering all these things, and that's good. But what you can do is you can just let yourself sort of autopilot while you're practicing a little bit and specifically try to react to Fox's full hops. Like just sort of play the game on autopilot and specifically just be watching for Fox to full hop. And then you can kind of train your reactions, because like the more times Fox full hops, you're paying attention, you react to it, and you get a punish, your brain will go, I should definitely like put myself in the zone to react to this more. Because it's getting you stuff. So
Right.
so like I think yeah, it can improve with time, but also you can specifically focus on it by like isolating it and sort of autopiloting other elements of the game to just sort of like put a little bit extra energy towards that, and then sort of just go back to normal, and then you've just sort of, given a little bit of a boost to like that part of your gameplay.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. I think I kind of do that too already, a little bit, but I think sometimes when I think the other issue that maybe will come up later in the match is I don't, I think, play the best mix-ups after I laser his landing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and like the way I was actually in a lesson with a guy a day or two ago, and I was telling him in the same matchup that like you have to think of Fox's full hop as like almost something that you're trying to like whiff punish. Like if you do like let me think of like, if you dash at your opponent and then you're trying to, do a dash to like bait a spot dodge or something, and then they do spot dodge, you have to be like super ready to like react to it, or they whiff an up smash. You have to be super ready to go in and punish that. And like even though Fox's full hop doesn't like commit to a move or have like obvious lag, like he's still actionable, it commits to his positioning. because he can no longer like change his ground positioning significantly. Like he can't dash dance in the air. He's committed pretty much to a specific jump arc with like slight variation for his drift. And so it is actually like a really big commitment that he has to make. And so like you have to be ready to react to it as if it's something like as if it's like a whiff punish or something like that. Like you have to be like, because you're just sort of playing the grounded neutral, and you can kind of tell too. You'll notice when Fox, like, I'm not telling you that you have to like, I mean, ideally every time Fox full hops, especially on this stage, you would just be ready and you would punish it. But like that's not usually gonna happen. A lot of times you'll notice that a fox is like kind of full hoppy in certain situations, and that makes it like extra easy to punish those situations. But the first thing you want to recognize is, did Fox full hop? And as soon as he full hop, so you like, the first thing you want to recognize is that he did full hop, and the second thing you want to recognize is, what is his jump arc? Is he going mostly just kind of straight up? Is he jumping super far? Those are like
Oh,
honestly the main two, but you just kind of want to see like generally where is he jumping, and then that'll define your best responses to it.
yeah, I wanted to ask you about that too. So I do sometimes I think the tricky thing for me is when foxes do full jump forward and then immediately drift all the way back.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So like I have to like or I feel like I have to space at the edge of the full drift forward because that's what I'm reacting to. And I laser at the edge of it, and that's fine. But then when he drifts all the way back, he's getting lasered kind of not too close to me. So the mix-up doesn't feel like all that great, but I think that's part of why it's sometimes hard for me to win the mix-up afterwards, is because I'm landing a laser that's not that close.
Right. Okay, so first of all, you don't have to avoid his full hop positioning in order to beat his full hop. You like, it's not like a situation where when Fox full hops, your mission is to get out of his way entirely, because that would give Fox way too much control over the matchup, where he could just full hop wherever he wants, and then he can basically move you around the stage by full hopping, and that's not what you want.
Yeah, that's what it feels like right now.
Yeah, and so that's because you're trying to avoid his full hop coming down on you, but Falco's up tilt completely beats all of Fox's descending options. Like, it's kind of like, like you're standing there and another Falco is coming down on you with down air or something. It's pretty comfortable to just up tilt it. And with Fox, you never even have a chance of getting like strong down aired. He's either going to do a nair, a back air, or a drill, and the nair and the back air, neither of those like hit super low, and if they do, they're usually going to trade on like a weak hit or something. And then if he does the drill, if you can trade with the up tilt, and you literally like, it'll just cancel your up tilt. Like, you have plenty of time to like do something afterward.
Yeah. So I think the other side of it is that like so sometimes I will try to like up tilt like at like inside their full hop range, but
Mm-hmm.
they will like drift back when they do their full hop. And then now I'm kind of like in a weird situation where I just whipped an up tilt and they just landed from their full hop. And that doesn't feel like I don't know, maybe that's just like part of the matchup. That's like something that just has to happen sometimes.
Um. Well, you want to up tilt like when you think they're going to fall on you, and then if they don't fall on you, I don't think they necessarily like won the situation. Like, if Fox full hops up, you up tilt, and then they land in front of you. Unless you up tilted really really late, you're not going to be like still in up tilt lag. Like, they're not going to be like positive on frames by avoiding your up tilt. So
Right.
I think you might have like a mentality issue a little bit, where in the matchup where it feels like you're trying to avoid Fox and then set up nice laser setups, but Fox should be moving around you. And so like when Fox full hops up and you just kind of hold your ground, he needs to be afraid of your up tilt and avoid it, rather than you being like, well, if I up tilt, he'll avoid it, like that's a problem. Like no, he has to avoid it, or else he'll get hit. And so a lot of times, even by just threatening the up tilt, you can get him to drift back or something like that.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah. You basically like the up tilt is probably worthwhile to go for more often.
The up tilt is really good, especially against foxes who full hop after a laser. Like when you laser and they see you lasering and they full hop directly over it, a lot of times laser turnaround up tilt will just beat whatever option they were planning, especially on this stage. It's like kind of brutal on this stage, and it's why on this stage foxes tend, like the better foxes tend to play significantly more grounded rather than more full hop heavy, because full hop is so punishable on this stage.
Got it.
And if he throws out like, so another thing is that you can still do jump shines. They're not quite as good here as other stages, but if Fox is, so it's kind of like if Fox can do early aerials, like he can jump up in there and just kind of hold it out. If he does that, you have options where you can, you know, CC it into a shine. You can up tilt it. You can get out of the way of it still. You can shield and roll. Not that you should every time, but that's kind of like not a bad panic option there. So a lot of times if he's doing like a back air or a nair, because it's too telegraphed, he'll wait and he'll do like an empty full hop and then like back air or nair at the last second. But if he does those, he's opening up the possibility for you to just snipe him with a jump shine or jump out of the way and laser or whatever like that. Like there's, well, I mean, I guess the laser kind of works on either way, on earlier or late. But like basically, you just have to see like which variation he's doing. Is he doing like a lot of like full hop, just kind of chucking the nair out? Because if he does, you know, you can walk into it and CC shine. You can still up tilt it. If he's doing like the late aerials, then he's kind of vulnerable like when he's in the air here. And honestly, you can still up tilt. It doesn't really change the up tilt situation. But if you want to catch him jumping, you can catch him with the shine sometimes. Maybe not quite as good on this stage, but there have been still so many times where like the Fox full hops like this, I jump up and shine them. They're DIing in, so they pop up right here, and I just double jump down air, and I still get the combo.
Right. Yeah. That's actually a good point. The distinction between like early and late aerials.
Mm-hmm.
I do think in my experience, most foxes pretty much always just do drill or like they do like late drill or late back air. So like I could probably actually jump shine them.
Mm-hmm. And the idea also is like if Fox is gonna full hop drill, your up tilt beats that every time. So he doesn't really like, especially if he's facing forward and his back air doesn't really have like a good angle. Like it doesn't, and you know, shine on a shield beats drill if he doesn't fade back on it. So like when you full hop as Fox and Falco's like right there on the ground after like a laser, it's kind of misguided to actually go for this. Like I don't go for this on this stage because the Falcos will just beat it. You can even jump into down air, you know, and still shine it. Like there's so many counters to this. The only reason that the full hop is so good at all in the matchup is because of the platforms. Because Fox can mix up with the platforms, he can full hop up. Falco shoots a laser, Fox double jumps away, resets, full hops up, and just kind of repeats that same like annoying neutral loop on the platforms. But on this stage, he just doesn't have that at all. It's like not relevant. So his full hop is actually like significantly worse on this stage.
Okay, got it. Makes sense.
And like, what happens here? Okay, so you're doing this. You do the lasers. He does this full hop. And yeah, like this is kind of just like, if you see Fox doing like a full hop double jump here, like this is such an easy, you know, dash back punish or run directly under and shield and shine out, or even like the spot dodge thing here.
I think
because like you can't really say that like this is good from like the Fox end. Like watch from the Fox perspective. So yeah, just pretend you're the Fox. Ignore this Falco. So he lasers you. Lasers again. You're feeling kind of pressured here. You know, Falco might be setting up for an F tilt or a grab and trying to gimp you. So he kind of freaks out. He shields. So you gave up a little too much space here. I think if you're gonna read him coming in, it's probably better to just like down air in place or something here, rather than dashing back. Because like Falco's dash back isn't really good against Fox because Fox is so much faster than him. Like your dash back is so Falco's dash back is not like Fox's dash back. Fox dashes back to avoid his opponent and then come back in with an attack. Falco dashes back to make his opponent think he's creating space for a laser. That is the purpose of Falco's dash back. Is you say, look, I'm totally creating space for a laser here, and you might actually be, and then but a lot of times you dash back so that your opponent thinks they need to come in, and then you can cover the space in front of them. That's that's kind of, but it looks like the length of dash back you do here and the sort of how far you go sort of looks like you're sort of like, oh, and then he'll like dash nair out of the corner and I'll avoid it or something like that, but you're not actually going to be able to punish it if he does that.
Yeah, I think I was doing the dash back, and then like specifically when I do like these dash backs, I'm like trying to react to what the fox does as I'm dashing back. Like it's basically like it's like the thing I was saying about how I want to like sometimes laser fox and then dash back and react to what option he does. So like if he does like a dash full hop nair, for example, or like take laser dash up smash, like I can kind of be in a better position to like punish it on reaction.
Mm-hmm. I think one thing you need to keep in mind is that, like, in a situation like this, Fox has all of his options. There aren't... So it's kind of like there are options you're covering and there are options you are threatening to cover. And in this situation where you're dashing back, you're not threatening to cover any of his options. Because it's kind of like, let's say Fox has, like, 10 options... and like let's say your positioning covers 3 of them, and so you're like, okay, I'm gonna dash back and I'm gonna react to which of the 7 options that Fox picks. But that gives Fox too much freedom. It's kind of like I've been playing a bunch of chess lately, and you want your moves to be like the most forcing you can. Like you want to do moves that limit your opponent's options because they need to like respond to what you're doing. Even if it's not like a direct attack, you want your threats to force Fox to do other options. And so like if you're in this position, a dash forward here makes it significantly easier to react to Fox's options because you both already understand that you're threatening a grab. Does that make sense?
Is that so? Like, are you saying that because like
So basically, when you're in this position, Fox isn't under enough pressure. Like, yeah, he's in the corner. He can't move backwards, so that's good. You've limited his options somewhat. But like, let's say you dash in and just pretend you're going to grab him, but you don't actually do it. You are creating a situation where you're now trying to react to your reaction is what like let's say you dash in but you're not actually going to go for the grab. That's what I'm saying. You're doing the same thing as this dash back where you just dash and you think about like what you're going to do to react. But when you dash back, you're threatening. Your threat is that you're going to run away and laser him, which isn't forcing anything. He has a ton of options to do. But if you run in like you're going to grab him, then what you're trying to react to is what is he doing? What is he going to do to avoid this grab that I'm threatening?
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I think, but like if I dash forward and say like he full hops in place, I I don't think I can like up tilt the full hop on reaction, right? Like maybe it's shielded at best, but like you think that's worth it?
Well, like you're saying, like if you do dash in and then he just literally full hops straight up. Can you hear me?
Sorry, yeah. Yeah, like if in that spot, instead of after landing the laser, instead of dashing back, I dash forward, and then he in response just full hops in place with like a
Okay,
full
okay, so
just to like get
now
to
we're
it.
in a situation where Fox has even less options than he had before, because now he full hops up in place, you dash back again. Now now he has even less options because you're saying, "Look, I'm about to punish your landing with a grab and throw you off." So now what are you going to do about that?
Oh, so like if I dash forward and then see his full jump in place, I can dash back and threaten with punishing the landing.
Yeah, and that limits the options even more. Where he's like, like it feels like he's being trapped, you know.
Right,
But
right,
you haven't even done anything. Oh, literally, what you did was dash in, dash back, and he already had to go through all these mental calculations of, okay, is Falco gonna commit to the grab? Is he trying to bait me? And it's like, if he can call out your empty dash in and, like, you know, drill in place or something, but that's gonna lose like way too many mix-ups. So like, as long as you're consistently like mixing up what you do out of the dash in, he has to like deal with all these options, and he's in a spot where he has to do something, and then it's like a lot easier to react. Because like, if you do this dash back, let's say Fox does literally nothing, he's fine. He doesn't have to do something here. But if you
yeah. That's
dash
actually kind of why it feels bad to do it sometimes.
but if you dash in, you're saying, look, if you don't do anything, I'm about to forward throw you off and you might lose your stock. And so just the inherent, just like the implicit threat of like dashing in is a lot of times like what makes him act exactly when you're expecting him to. Because if you dash in, he has to act in this moment. He has to choose something. He has to choose an attack. He has to choose a movement. He has to make a choice. Because if he doesn't make a choice, there's a chance you're just going to run in and grab him. And like,
Right,
he doesn't want to deal with that chance. Like, most of the time, if you dash in this position, foxes aren't thinking like, oh, the Falco is just going to empty dash dance here, you know? No, they're thinking, oh, he's coming to get me, so I better figure out a way out. I better roll, I better full hop, I better go for a psychotic up smash, which works 2% of the time and no one's going to do, you know? But he doesn't have that many options, and he can't dash back. And if he dashes forward, he's still going to get grabbed. He doesn't have enough time. After he reacts to you dashing in right here, at this range. So look, he's in this spot. He gets lasered. You laser him again. He takes the laser here. If you dash in, this is like panic mode for Fox. Because he knows, like, there's a laser, you're totally threatening the dash and grab. Maybe he'll spot dodge, so you can just wait it out. You'll see Mango do this a lot, where his opponent's in the corner, he lasers them, and then he just dash dances like this. Just dash dances like in their face like this. And this is like the reason for it, is because he has the implicit threat of the run and grab, and he uses that, maintains the tension, and like uses the tension that Fox is afraid of the grab to manipulate his opponent and like react to what his opponent does.
right. That makes sense. Do you think there's like, are you saying the dash back react one option is like almost always worse than the dash in, or just in this situation you think it would be better to dash in because he's in the corner?
I think that in this particular position, the dash back is not good. I think in a lot of situations, the dash forward is better. There are plenty of situations where the dash back is good, but like literally like here, like look at this. This is not a situation where you want to say, hey Fox, I'm gonna give up space and laser, so you should punish me for it, you know? Because that's what the dash back says. The dash back says, I'm going to give up space to laser you, and so you better come in and hit me, and then you do some mix-up off of that. But Fox is like in the corner, and he's about to die from laser grab forward throw. So Fox isn't... Like, if you dash back here, the Fox doesn't think, Falco is creating space for a laser, I better hit him. He's thinking, oh, thank goodness he moved away from the pressure.
Right, right.
So
Okay.
it's not in every situation, because there are situations where like, let's say this was in, like, let's say the situation is kind of reversed, where, like, let's say you're here, and then he's, like, right here, and then you laser him right here. The dash back and dash in are a lot more, like, 50-50 kind of there, because depending on, like, what your opponent thinks of you and stuff like that, because, like, let's say your opponent is here, and then you're here, and you're facing towards him, and then you dash back here. A lot of times this is like a really good bait, and you, like, once again, you'll see Mango hit this a lot, where he's right here, and you'd think, okay, so, like, Mango doesn't want to be this close to the corner, so he's definitely going to go, like, towards the center stage, and then he dashes way back into the corner, and you're like, that's dumb, because he's clearly trying to just get away from his opponent and laser here. So he dashes back, his opponent goes, oh man, he's going to go into the corner, and he's going to shoot a laser at me, and then he's going to try to work his way out of the corner with a laser. But right now he's scared, so he's going back to the corner. And the opponent moves in, and then Mango just does dash back, dash in, either laser or down air here, and just wins the situation and gains the space back.
Yeah, I've seen that, actually, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So that's why you'll see him dash back, and you'll see really good Falcos dash back here when their opponent's in center. And that's the reason, is because it's a bait. It's like, oh man, Falco made a mistake. He's putting himself in the corner to laser, and so they move in, and then bam. And so, and you can also do a thing, you know, where they're here, you laser them, and then you dash in, and they think, man, Falco's just trying to, like, laser and just come in out of the corner willy-nilly. I'm going to move back, and then you do laser in place, approaching laser, because a lot of times they're going to give up space after the dash in, because they think you're just going to try to laser down air into center stage to get, like, a big combo or something like that.
Makes sense.
And, like, these types of situations, this happens all the time, and this isn't bad for you at all. Like, where Fox chooses a full hop, I mean, you've already chosen your laser. So it's, like, right here. This is, like, not a problem. And you're not going to get a punish off of this, but it's also not bad for you. Like, this is fine. This is a situation where, depending on sort of the flow of neutral, you get to decide, do I laser in place? Do I dash in to threaten Fox? Because a lot of times what a good option here, in this position, it's always really juicy, is you do laser in place, like this one. Then you do dash forward, and then jump laser forward, and then a lot of times the Fox will give up space into the corner, thinking that you're going to down air right here. And then now you landed a laser here, the Fox is in the corner, and you get to set up that tension in the corner and, like, pressure him. So that's, like, a really good way to, like, get out of this, from this position into, like, a good pressure situation in the corner. And then if the Fox is feeling super aggro, that is where you'd probably want to laser. And you can do laser here, even when the Fox is super aggro, and they have a really hard time punishing it. And I think that's good, too, to hold your ground. Or you do the dash back, and then you do a dash in and mix up. And then there's a second level to it, where you can do it. You can, right here, you can do a dash back. Then you do a dash in, and then Fox will think that you're going to, like, bait him with the dash in, dash back, dash back, dash in aerial. So you'll dash back, he dashes in, you dash in, then he dashes back, and then you're approaching laser, and you're like, aha, I got you. You thought I was going to dash back, dash in aerial, you know? So, and I know it sounds complicated, but it's really just, like, a few of these little, like, these are all, like, tools that you can use. Because, like, ultimately, the game is not about, I don't want to say that, the game becomes less about position when both players involved fully understand all the positions that are occurring. Like, positional play of, like, trying to get your opponent in the corner and stuff like this, that is all still relevant. But when your opponent understands the risk reward of all these different positions also, you're not going to get wins just by playing solid positioning. Like, you're not going to get wins by just lasering Fox, he full hop, does a bad full hop, and then you get, like, a whiff punish. Like, that is, against better players, those are not going to come up nearly as often. And so, ultimately, as you get better, these tools for the dash dance, what threats they entail, like, whether you can aerial fade back, late laser, late aerial, laser in place, dash back, dash in, laser, dash back, dash in, aerial, all these different combinations, they sort of become like they're just sort of tools, like, you know, like you have like a hand of playing cards, kind of, you know, you're playing like a card game or something, and your opponent also knows like all the cards in your deck. So you have, like, there's a mutual understanding of what everything does, and the game becomes a lot more about manipulating your opponent's perception of what your intentions are with, like, each dash. Like, are these dashes to gain space? Are these dashes to close space? Are these dashes here to bait something out? Was this laser in place to set up for an instant down air setup? Was this laser in place here to see if after I laser in place twice and I dash in, do you take that as a cue to full hop, which maybe gives me an opening? So these tools for, like, creating situations in the corner, once you sort of have all of these down and you mix up between them effectively enough that your opponent can't, like, just be like, oh, he only uses these two options, I can ignore the rest of Falco's toolkit. Your goal is to get all of these options working together at in various positions, and then once you have that, the game becomes entirely around, like, does my opponent think he's on the back foot? Does my opponent think he should be rushing in right now? And you use those tools to manipulate the Fox based on dashing and lasers and aerials in order to, you know, beat your opponent, not just to beat Fox.
Got it.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so. I think the
Yeah, what are your thoughts on it? We can sort of go over it a little bit more.
so, like, when I land this laser in this position, I think oftentimes I do have a lot of trouble figuring out what it is that what the fox is thinking. Like in this exact, like, what the frame that we're on.
Yeah, like literally this. Yeah, no, this is a very, very common situation too.
It's actually just really, like, in my head, I'm so confused about, like, what it is that he's likely to do, and it feels like there's so many things he could do, even though it's like not obviously a bad situation. It's just I'm just like, it's hard for me to wrap my head around what it is that, like, the fox is most likely going to be doing, and I don't know. Maybe that's just like part of a broader topic.
Yeah. So rather than going too much into it right now, I'll go into it a little bit. But I linked you a video on Discord, and I did this whole lesson. It's a Marth Ditto lesson, you know, so it's not going to be 100% relevant at every point. But, like, the majority of this lesson, I sort of talk at length about information gathering, and because that's kind of the thing. Like, the idea is that, like, you have all these tools, and then each time you use a tool, every time, so, like, kind of like, okay, so, like, let's say you laser Fox here, and then you go for a down air in, okay, and then he dashes back and he avoids it. And then, let's say, but you down air in and you fade back the down air. And so he dashes back, but neither of you cover anything. You both got one piece of information out of that. The information you got was, I lasered Fox at this distance. I dashed in, which is, like, the critical, like, it's kind of, you know, like, you need to know which box to put the information in. So I lasered Fox at this distance. He got hit by the laser. I dashed in. Fox thought I was going to do a full distance aerial, but I instead did a half distance aerial, and so he dashed back out of this laser. So now he has the information that you did a laser dash in and fade back and did a fade back aerial, and you have the information that you did a laser dashed in and he dashed back expecting the full length down air. And so it's very easy to, like, start overthinking this of, like, what does my opponent, you know or not know or think about? And I think the best way to go about it is to focus on your information first and foremost of what the Fox did, of you lasered him and dashed forward and he dashed away. So now what you can do is the next time you're in this situation, you can laser, then dash forward and laser, and see if he dashes away again. So that is like the first point, is like, I did this option and he did his option. If we get in the situation again and I do an option that beats the option he did the first time, will he do it again? And then you get to a situation like, let's say you dash in, he dashes away, you laser, the laser catches his dash back, and you get a laser shine and you combo him to death. Then he comes back for the new stock, you laser, a couple things happen, you end up in this exact situation again, or a very similar situation. Then you can start making sort of judgments on your opponent of, is my opponent going to change what he did, or is he going to react to the same thing again? And against most opponents, if you don't have good knowledge that your opponent is like a very adaptive player already, you can just do the same thing again. Laser here, approaching laser. Will he get hit by the dash back again? If he doesn't get hit by the dash back, let's say you laser, approaching laser, and you go for the approaching laser, and he runs in and he up smashes you, and then he zero deaths you, and now you're both at 3 stocks to 3. There's nothing wrong with that interaction. You didn't do anything wrong to get up smashed there. But now you have the information that after you hit him with the laser in the first time and he dashed back, the second time you do it, he's expecting you to go in. So then maybe the third time you do it, you laser in this position, and you dash in, dash back, and you say, hey, are you going to try to up smash me again? Does he? And you can sort of build these things off of that. And I'm not expecting you to have like full consciousness of these types of things in the match, but you have to keep in mind that is like generally like what you should be going for. Like you should be trying to think of it like that. And what was that?
Sorry, I was just gonna say, like, that makes a lot of sense, and I think that I kind of try to do that a little more nowadays. Like when I laser the fox, I pay attention to what they do after on their landing.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is, like, I think sometimes it's like a little tricky for me to like properly recognize the difference between different positions and situations. So like not every laser landed on every full hop landing is the same. Like if I land a laser when Fox is in the corner on his landing, it's like different than if it, like in this situation where it's like kind of in center. And like I think that part is like kind of where maybe I'm not
Okay. That's perfect. I can explain that. So the important part about positions is not the positions themselves, it is the result of those positions. So, for instance, probably the simplest example is there are all kinds of up B heights. Let's say you're on Battlefield or something, and there are all kinds of up B heights that Fox can do that will all get covered by you falling off the ledge and double jump back airing and killing him. So, because the result of all of those positions is equivalent, those positions can kind of be like chunked together, or they can kind of like collapse into like the result of that situation. So, okay, do you follow me? That far?
Yeah, that totally makes sense. Yeah.
Okay, so when you end up in situations where there are slightly different spacings on the laser landings, and maybe he's at like a slightly different height, and all these things, all that matters is what possible results can come out of the situation after the situation you're in. So yeah, there are a bunch of these random little like slight differences in laser spacings, and like that's part of what makes the game so interesting, is that like you can't just super easily clump information together and be like 100% correct. There are always going to be ambiguities between different like groups of situations. But like when you're in a situation where you laser Fox, so the easiest way to break it down, in my opinion, is to break it down by what threats you have as the Falco. And so if you laser Fox and it doesn't matter if he's like here or whatever, or here, none of these matter. What matters is, do I have a threat of a down air from this range, if you have a threat of a dash-in down air, then all of the situations where you threaten the dash-in down air, those can all be stored in the same spot. Because it's what is Fox doing? This is going back to what I was saying earlier. What is Fox doing to avoid the threat that I am creating? And so that's why, like, for instance, like when Fox is far away, like let's say you're on Dreamland, Fox is on the other side of the stage and you're lasering him. It doesn't really matter as much what options Fox chooses because you don't actually have any threats and he doesn't really have any threats on you. And so you can both kind of do any option you want. And so your goal is to kind of play safe and sort of, you know, encroach on their space and try to set up for a situation like this where you do have a threat. And once you do have these threats, then you can start creating like the actual like relevant mix-ups to the matchup where you have a threat involved, because when you have a threat, you have a response to a threat, and when you have a response to the threat, that is a piece of information you can store. Is how did they respond to the threat of me dashing in aerialing? How did they respond to the threat of me dashing in to grab them in the corner? How did they respond to the threat of them being on a platform and me full hopping up to try to get to them? So it doesn't matter how many slight different positions there are, and yes, those slight different positions do slightly require different spacing and movement and stuff like that, but the threats involved are so similar that you can, like, if they're so similar in your brain that you're having trouble like telling them apart in the game between, you know, a laser dash in here and a laser dash in when Fox is here, then your opponent is also most likely not experiencing those states as like super different states. And a lot of times this is where like improvement actually comes from at the higher level, is saying like, okay, this situation and this situation are like kind of, you know, chunked together, where Fox is here versus Fox is here. These are chunked together, but then there are like specific moments where you realize that, like, wait a minute, these multiple situations that I've been grouping together, I've been losing the mix-ups on these situations because I was storing this information as one situation, whereas my opponent or a higher level opponent or just the characters in general don't really like perceive the situation or don't like interact with that situation the same way. So
yeah, exactly.
Hmm?
I was just going to say that feels exactly like what happens sometimes. Like, I think that some situations are the same, but my opponent doesn't see it that way, and then I like get confused.
Mm-hmm. So that's why when you... Okay, so that is kind of a big topic, but the simplest way to break it down is that, like, are the situations actually different in the game? Are there different threats depending on the range? If there aren't different threats depending on the range and your opponent is perceiving things, like, you'll see me a lot of times, I'll play somebody and I'll be like, oh, they're like literally just like not really playing the game correctly, because they're like they're like their perception of like what is happening doesn't line up with the capabilities of the characters. So the way you find these like ways to like sort of slice up the chunks of situations into new situations is like recognizing that the threats are slightly different. Whereas like if Fox is really close, you know, maybe you're threatening and like a laser up tilt here, and so the situation then becomes different from the laser jump in aerial threat. Whereas, like, let's say your opponent doesn't even realize that there's a different range here, and so they just play it all as one position. If your opponent isn't playing to the capabilities of the characters, then you'll just get a bunch of free laser up tilts here because they think that the only thing you're threatening is, like, an aerial. So, like, your opponent being wrong and misinterpreting the way to group situations strictly benefits you. I mean, mostly benefits you. And like,
right.
Yeah, there are ways that like your opponent can misperceive the game and then hit you because of it, but we're not really playing to that. Like, you will never 100% win this game ever. even against like someone who is straight up like on their first week of play, it's very difficult to JV them if they're just throwing out moves randomly. Like, if they're trying to space and trying to do things, they make it easy to manipulate them, then yeah, you can JV5 them. But, like, if they're on their first week of play and they're just, like, running around throwing out dash attacks and tilts and stuff, there's no way you're ever going to beat them without taking some form of damage. And if people have kind of, like, a dumb neutral, but they have, like, a pretty good punish, inevitably, those players will still hit you and get a strong punish sometimes. But the idea is that if you are playing correctly to the capabilities of the characters, you will have an advantage in terms of probability, and because you have a more solid style based on the actual capabilities of the characters. And what'll happen once you get better at this is you'll be playing these situations, your opponent starts not making sense. Because this will happen to me, and this will happen to other high-level players, is you kind of get in that situation where you're like, I'm lasering, I'm watching for someone, and you're like, are they just not reacting to my dash in, like, at all? Like, you kind of have this realization that, like, wait a minute, they're, like, not paying attention. And so, if they're not actually paying attention to the threats that your character is putting on them, then you can just follow through on those threats, and they're not going to be prepared, they're going to get hit. Because the whole reason this entire metagame evolves around threats, escapes from threats, information gathering. This is all like a structure that builds on people trying to like beat each other. And so if your opponent ignores the structure, they might have like some small percentage of success just by being completely out in left field and you can't understand their thought process. They will get some benefit from that, but like overall, the reason why that whole mix-up game is being played is because that's the most effective way to play the game. And if they don't play the game in that way and they're just ignoring those situations, they're just going to get they're just going to get hit by a bunch of moves. Because the whole reason that this whole mix-up exists in the first place is because you have the threat of attacking.
Right.
So if somebody's incoherent, that's just a free win. Probability-wise, you're going to win 99% of the time if somebody's not making sense. And when people do make sense, then all of these algorithms you've set up for information gathering work. And so I explained this in the Marth versus Marth lesson too, and that's why I think you should watch it, or at least skip through it, is that like if somebody's like not down, then like I don't know, it's just so much easier. And like what you should do is if somebody's not down and like your information, like you want to use your information gathering to understand your opponent's habits. But if you reach this point where none of the info lines up and it doesn't appear coherent at all, then you just turn off your brain and hit them with combos. Because your understanding of threat ranges and stuff is just superior to that person. And like I say this all the time, you shouldn't try to think against players worse than you. Do not try to outsmart players that you can beat with combo game. Like, just don't do it. It's an exercise in madness. Because they're not paying attention to the threats you're putting. They don't have this structure built. And so you're playing against an opponent who is literally on a totally different like plane of thinking than you are in terms of like the game. Like you're not on the same page. But the better the players are, the more coherent their style, the easier it is to understand what they're doing. Like that's kind of like a sort of like an oxymoron type thing, or like it's very unintuitive that like it's easier, and this is true for me too, it's significantly easier to read the best players in the world than it is to read random noobs. And
that makes sense. Yeah.
And it's because they have such coherent plans and mix-ups, because they're playing the game at a high level, that each movement they make and every attack they make is like extremely like loaded, heavy information that you can store all this information and learn so much more about their style and their thought process, because each of their actions has intent behind it. And so, yeah, that's sort of like not everything about it, but that is like the best generalization of that concept that I can kind of come up with.
I really like that, actually. I think that actually helps me understand a lot, I think, in general about the game. And I'll definitely...
You'll definitely what? Sorry, you cut out.
I'll check out that Marth lesson too for sure.
Mm-hmm. And it's basically going over the same thing I described, but just hearing it again and sort of phrased a little bit differently, I think that'll help you out also. And
Yeah, for sure.
and it's really funny that like the plan was like to go over one game and then maybe get to the next game, and we're like basically at like an hour, and we are 14 seconds into the first stock. but I feel like this was all like super relevant to like what you were actually confused on. Like I don't think like the actual interactions in this game were like nearly as relevant as like the changes in mindset going towards like how to gather the information so you're not stuck trying to react to all 20 options that Fox can do all at once and sort of overloading yourself, you know?
Right. Yeah, I agree. I think this is more than productive for sure.
But okay, do you have closing thoughts?
Um, I think that no, I think that kind of makes sense. I'll probably have some questions further on or later on, but
Yeah.
for right
Definitely
now,
feel free to hit me up with any extra questions, or like if you have a clip and you're like, "What does this mean?" Like feel free to send it to me, and I'll just help you out on that with no problem.
yeah, okay, for sure, awesome. Then no, yeah, I think I'm good for now.
Okay, cool. Really fun lesson. I really enjoyed talking about that stuff. So hope you have a good one, man, and I'll be uploading this pretty soon.
All right, awesome. Thanks.
All
You too,
right,
man.
later.